Back in 1 Timothy chapter 6, we thought about the idea that godliness with contentment is great gain. And if we truly understand that and take it to heart, we will avoid many of the hardships that this chapter talks about. Solomon, the teacher, tells us, "I have seen another evil under the sun, and it weighs heavily on mankind. God gives some people wealth, possessions, and honor so that they lack nothing their hearts desire, but God does not grant them the ability to enjoy them, and strangers enjoy them instead. This is meaningless, a grievous evil." So imagine the life of this person. They have everything that society tells them to want. They have wealth, status, comfort, security, opportunity, and all the rest of it. They have climbed the career ladder. They've ticked every box. They've hit every target. They've met every goal. They are the poster boy or girl of the wealthy Western world. And yet, we are told, they can't and they don't enjoy all their earthly success. Think of the high-flying business person who never stops working long enough to actually enjoy, say, a simple meal with his own family. Think of the couple who spend years working towards saving up for their dream home, only to discover that by the time they eventually buy it and move in, their relationship itself is falling apart. Think of the anxious saver, always hoarding for the future, who doesn't have the courage to simply rest, to relax, to take the day off, to stop working in the evening perhaps, and to simply enjoy the gift that God has given right now. They are always deferring happiness to some day in the future rather than appreciating the real and simple beauty of the day and the health and the strength that God has given right now. It's a real tragedy because they have what so many people want, and yet, for whatever reason, they cannot taste the joy of it. The teacher next goes even darker and more desperate with his imagery. He shows us a man who has everything that the Old Testament would call a blessing. A huge family. It's preposterously big. He's got 100 children, verse 3 tells us. And he lives many years, and yet his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, and he doesn't even have a proper burial. Solomon makes a shocking comparison, and he says, the stillborn child, when he dies without ever having opened his eyes on earth, has a better position than one who lives a long and yet miserable life. Even if he lives 1,000 years twice over, but fails to enjoy his prosperity, we are told. Long life isn't a beautiful thing if that long life is miserable, and long life is miserable if we are always chasing gifts and never acknowledging the giver. Again, the person worshipping money without realizing that it's more blessed to give than to receive falls into that category. The workaholic who cannot take weekends off to be with his family. Do not all go to the same place, Solomon says, as in the grave. He's not here making a comment about heaven and hell. He's making the point that if you are spiritually unable to enjoy God's gifts at, say, 40 years old, then don't kid yourself into thinking that you will be able to enjoy God's gifts at 80 years old. The problem is not the stage of your life, but the state of your heart. Without right relationship with Him, more life just means more emptiness, more chasing after the wind. The problem here then is the dissatisfied soul, the heart that is constantly seeking meaning in possessions and greater gifts rather than turning to God Himself. As the famous quote from the church father Augustine goes, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you." That is exactly the point that Solomon is making. Everyone's toil is for their mouth, yet their appetite is never satisfied. We're told. We work so that we can eat. We labor so we can live. We strive and chase and consume, but the appetite remains unsatisfied. As soon as one desire is met, another rises to take its place. This verse is not about food. It's about the fantasy that satisfaction lies in some day in the far off distant future. The salary that we once dreamed of will feel normal once you have attained it. The house that once seemed huge now seems unsatisfactory. The job that we once thanked God for now feels beneath us. The spouse that we rejoiced over on our wedding day is a frustration to us, getting under our feet. The children who we longed for and prayed for and looked ahead to now curtail our freedom and cramp our style. And you see, If the problem is always out there somewhere, then the problem is really in here. Verse 9 puts it perfectly. Better what the eye sees than the roving of the appetite. Meaning, it is better to see what you have and be glad right now than for your appetites to always increase, always hunting for something bigger and better, because in that way you will never be content. Ecclesiastes 6 is a warning and an invitation. The warning is clear. If you chase satisfaction in gifts alone, you will never achieve it. Desire will always outpace your experience of life, but the invitation is deeper. Go back to the giver of these great gifts. Go back to God. Godliness with contentment really is great gain, because in knowing and trusting Jesus, we have a treasure we could never lose.